Welcome to my channel, everyone. Today we are talking about my favorite camera to start like for beginners, both in sports photography, wildlife photography, family photography, or wedding photography for 2025. And this camera is Canon EOS R10. It's not the newest camera in this, like more budget-oriented lineup of cameras, but it is great. And let's talk about how this camera performs in 2025. What do I like about this camera? What I like miss to have in this body, and how does the competition looks like in 2025. This is going to be interesting because since this camera was released, there was quite a lot of competition there. However, taking into consideration its price, to quality ratio, this camera is still holding up great. And when I first got R10 some years ago, it was okay, it's a great body, light, small, but the lenses. Now, fortunately enough, Sigma is changing this situation because we have 16mm, 23mm, 30mm, and 56mm on Canon EFR-S mount. So this is a huge change because you have everything for your needs to be covered. Like if you need something to put it on a gimbal, you have 16mm and 23mm landscapes, and if you want something for portrait, wedding photography, you have there's 30mm and 56mm lenses, bright, sharp, great. So let's talk about the main qualities, main features that I do actually like about this camera. One of it is ergonomics. It's great to hold, and there's little or nothing to change here because the screen is great, the autofocus joystick and autofocus handling is awesome, fully operational touchscreen, which I always love, and it was always better than any other system. Even my favorite personal system, Sony. The only downside is this lock button that is very easy to click when you want to click record button. So sometimes you can lock accidentally your camera, but that's pretty much it. Ergonomically, it's great. You have all the things you need. You have HDMI out. You can charge it via USB-C. You have, of course, microphone input. No headphone input, but it's a budget-oriented camera, so let's not demand too much. What I do not like is this small battery here. It can last, according to CIPA, it can last about 350 shots and 210 on EVF. So that's not the best performance. It's rather one of the worst performing cameras when it comes to longevity, but to battery longevity. But at the other hand, if you just buy one of the cheap Chinese versions of this battery pack, then you're covered. Now, what I do like about this camera that it can shoot 15 frames per second with mechanical shutter, and that is a big advantage when it comes to rolling shutter and dynamic range. What is the downside here is this 2-second buffer, which is quite small, let's face it, but if you want a bigger buffer, you have to look towards R7, but then you have to pay more. However, for a lot of entry-level photographers, as I call it, because it's an entry-level camera, this is completely enough, and it stands out when you look at the competition. We will look at competition later, so stay tuned. Now, let's talk about the video. Video 4K 30 frames per second, quite extensive, unfortunately, rolling shutter. But if you're not filming anything fast, anything fast moving, fast paced, then you're okay. Then there's also 4K 60 frames per second with less rolling shutter, but with 1.56 crop factor. So this is something to consider, but you can still squeeze out quite a lot out of this camera, and you can record in 10 bits, which is quite nice because budget-oriented Sony cameras in this segment do not have this option. We'll talk about it just in a moment. However, what stands to me the most, I should mention this 1080p, that if you want slow motion, you have to switch to slow motion mode, and then when you go back from slow motion, it turns back to normal 1080p, I think 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, which is annoying because you have to switch yourself back to 4K, something to keep in mind. And autofocus system is also great in this camera. It's very responsive, very fast, it's very easy to lock on your face. It does perform amazingly in photo mode, but in video you have to be aware, and this is problem with most Canon cameras, that it can get distracted. So it's filming, you're holding onto your face, to your eye, which is great, but then it starts to search something in the background, and your shot can be ruined. So have that in mind, but autofocus still is very, very good. Not as good, I would say, as in Sony. Still, it's my favorite autofocus system on the market, but very good. However, what shines in this camera and what makes it like the most compelling choice for like beginners is the colors out of the camera. While Sony is great, and you know, let's face it, those images are still very good, even if the colors are not that great. But if you want great colors out of Sony camera, you have to play with this, you know, like images. You have to play with settings. Here, out of the box, out of the body, you get very nice looking JPEGs. I'm saying nice looking JPEGs because like a lot of people praise Canon for its color science and for this warm Canonish like look, and I do understand why, because it is nice to look at. So if you're looking for you know, like very good JPEGs and very good or easy to edit like video straight out of the camera, not flat profile, but just, you know, like a little bit of tweaks here and there and you're good to go, then this camera is a great choice. It can give you both JPEGs and you know, MOV files straight out of this camera that look good, which is not the case, as I said, with Sony. Now it's time to look at the competition, because since this camera was launched, there is some fresh competition on the market. So like stepping up with the price, you got much older Sony a6400. And this is still a great camera, but you have to be aware, there is no 10-bit internal recording when it comes to video. However, autofocus performance, despite being older, to me is a little bit more reliable. So if you're looking for a autofocus beast and you don't mind to pay a little bit more, then a6400 is still a great choice. The next one on the list would be, as a competitor, would be a Nikon Z50 but Mark II, and this guy changed a lot. And I was thinking, should I say that R10 is my favorite or Z50 Mark II? Well, both cameras are extremely similar. However, there are things I prefer on Canon system, which is autofocus system. I know I said it can get distracted, but handling of this autofocus system for the beginner is just easier in my taste, and I prefer the ergonomics of Canon. But that might be the case that I'm just used to Canon cameras more than I am to Nikon cameras. So those cameras are very competitive. So if you're looking for a great camera to start with, Z50 Mark II should be also high on your list. Next one is like already much more expensive camera that is actually one of my personal favorites when it comes to APS-C cameras, which is Fujifilm X-XS20. What makes this camera stand out and very worth pick, like if you don't mind to spend more, then this is like in-body image stabilization. It works great on Fuji. And again, we are coming back to straight out of the camera, great colors. Even in my preferred, I even prefer Fujifilm colors over Canon colors, but that's, you know, that's more of a religious discussion, let's call it. But coming back to the point is like this IBS system is really good. Autofocus is behind Canon, so that's a downside here, but you get like 10 bits internal recording, and F-Log is a great profile to work with, very easy, and you have like free lots straight from Fuji's website that you can actually, you know, easily adjust your videos. So this is a great pick. And the last one on this list is a Sony a6600, which is like beast of a camera because you have 10 bits internal recording, you have IBIS, you have, you know, Sony autofocus system. So if you're looking for complete package and the price is not your priority, a6600 probably would be my preferred choice. And of course the selection of like the choice of lenses is just out of, like, you know, there's no competition there. Like whatever focal length you need, whatever zoom lens you need, you're covered on Sony system. But still, taking into consideration its price, and it's like I'm coming back to EOS R10 by Canon. So if you're taking into consideration its price, its size, it's you know, ergonomy and like the video capabilities and like how good the photos look out of it, and this 50 frames per second mechanical shutter burst mode, then you're looking at a very complete package at a very good price. So that's why I decided to pick this camera as my like to-go camera for 2025 if you are starting out. So if you have a question, Sopotnicki, like Sputnik, which camera would you pick for to begin with? I would pick Canon EOS R10. However, I presented all the alternative options that you can choose from. Of course, you may choose like full frame cameras like Canon EOS RP or Nikon Z5, sorry, or like Sony A7 Mark III. Those are also very capable full frame cameras, but that's another story because those cameras are usually a little bit more expensive, not considering RP. But this package can do more than, for example, Canon EOS RP. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if you did. And first of all, which camera would you pick and recommend for newcomers in the video and photo world to consider? Also, take into consideration used cameras because I'm not against it. There's a lot of places to buy great used gear right now. So leave thumbs up, subscribe, and I see you guys in the next one. Cheers.